I think the goal is to run a factory airbox, factory Hilux box. It would look neater, but little pecker hole. I've got to stop calling this a diesel one because it's a V6 one. Little hole, 3Z big hole. So that meter will have greater velocity, so it'll have a higher voltage and will run richer. The big guy's been playing down there with alternators and power steering and putting the correct bolts in it and fittings in it and making new lines for the alternator. And we played alternators over here. Yeah, we played alternators, and he's been searching around for an Aircon pump, and I said, hey, there was one in the office, and it turns out that it doesn't turn. But luckily I had this one off another engine, so this one turns. This is a SF20 non-VVTi, I think. So Old Yeller gets rated again, but it was just going for a ride on Old Yeller anyway. Intake manifold's on. Solenoid under the manifold. Is it in the bin? Oh no, there is. Common as the wiring falls apart, and that's an indication that the solenoid's probably about due to fall apart anyway, so we put a new solenoid in them. It's that fella there. And it's, to us, this is just a maintenance item. Hope you left one behind, because I want to do my 430. Because
there's 3 in there. Three in there.
Oh, good. I'm glad, because I want to do my 430. Because I really want some bottom end power. Torque, I should say, shouldn't I? I should say torque. And then Jason's going to do something with... Oh, you are going to cheat, eh? You're definitely going to cheat with this one.
Cheat.
You are just going to fit that fuel filter right there, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
It might even clip on.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, you might just be lucky. 3Zs are returnless. They have a fuel pressure regulator back in the tank. And we see this a little bit where guys slam the engine in, connect the fuel line on to an existing system, and suddenly there's no fuel pressure reg. And they get all the pressure, right? All of that pressure, and that is not ideal.
It makes the pump very unhappy.
Yes. So this one was running really rich. We had the airflow meter problem and the fuel filter problem. So Jace is going to resolve those issues and put an aircon pump. And fix the... This is like the...
I don't see a problem with that.
It's not about seeing it, it's about hearing it.
You've got the V8 running right here.
It's definitely the low friction bearing though, isn't it?
It goes, I reckon that's a...
That's quite impressive. Righto.
I had it spinning for like 3 minutes before.
Excellent.
I hit it with compressed air and it was spun up and it just keeps spinning.
Yeah. Actually, I should say why I changed the alternator too. So this vehicle here has a 4-pin computer controlled alternator. It's not going to mesh well with the truck. So we've gone back to a 3Z 3-pin alternator. And then I'll fiddle the wiring to make it work. I'm building a wiring loom anyway, so it makes sense to fiddle the wiring to make it easy for me to do the alternator and not have that issue later on. We're also doing things like fitting the factory ECU back into it so the temp gauge works, and some other bits and pieces in there. You've gotten fussy, eh? You like the right bolts now. You've been so used to having all the correct bolts.
Just see if I can...
Make it close, good.
Oh yeah, I can have that one.
So did you see why we swapped the aircon pump?
On Jason's boat?
Any of these 3UZ, like 3UZs. So what happens is that they're not clutched. The pump doesn't have a clutch on it.
Okay.
We got one with a clutch, so you can see here. So I'm spinning the pump.
Yeah.
And then it's controlled electronically. The output's controlled electronically. So the pump's always pumping.
Yeah.
You probably should have talked to the aircon guys while you were over there if you hadn't known about it.
The difference between the mechanical clutch ones and the electrical ones.
Yeah, so this one's controlled by a valve and the pump basically pumps all the time.
Oh, well, I'll probably see him again.
Yeah, so if I've got
Oh, James.
an Aircon pump,
Oh, brother James.
this one. So this one normally, see the bearing's turning, but the pump's not turning.
Yeah.
So the clutch isn't engaged.
Yeah.
So to turn the pump, you do that clutch.
Yeah.
This is the special one. This is the special low friction clutch. I think the pump's probably been full of water, but so that's the difference there. See, the pump isn't turning.
Yeah. And that one there, it must cycle back through itself like a water pump.
Correct. Yeah. It cycles internally.
Yeah. The whole motor's turning there.
So the pump's turning and it just flicks around inside. Oh, I know what else we need to do. A lockout on the shifter of some sort of sorting there. Jason's being creative, so we've used one of these into there. Factory airflow meter body.
I've been shopping in the back of the ute.
That's right, shopping. And he's going to glue it all together, and that gets rid of the small piece there that was 60 something, 65?
Smaller than that.
Oh, was it?
It's little. It's like this big. It's that big.
Well, it was that big. Well, it's still that big, but did you use your teeth or something? Did you have a possum to nibble on it?
Yeah.
One of the goats?
One of the goats. If you ain't got a goat and fucking nibble.
Luckily, we didn't have this style. Oh, you said to be careful of that, eh?
Yeah.
Considerably smaller. And that'll affect that signal a lot. But the correct airflow meter, oh, we've dropped it. So that's a crown one. Lucky we didn't have a crown one. Jason's doing just those final tidy ups on this while I'm just doing the final tidy ups on the wiring. And I'm not actually going to show most of the wiring because it's kind of demoralizing. This is a 2013 truck and the wiring looks like it's been done by a 4-year-old. Actually, it's worse than that. It is. These wires cut off in the loom that you need, like for the start inhibit, they're cut off. And we've got wires that go in as a brown wire and under the tape already changed colour before it goes to another wire and joined to another wire within the loom.
Oh, so it's going back to the boat.
Like that. That's very similar. Like
Boat technology.
I really just about want to throw it away, but I don't have a spare loom for a 2006 GS 430 at present because they're all allocated to other engines.
Yes.
And this is leave yours alone. I'm very tempted, Jace, because it's that bad. But I will repair it. I will fix it. It's going to go in the right place, and it'll come up okay.
Mine comes in the wrong place. Anyway.
I've done most of the connectors, and you know, like I'm doing like the injector connectors, and they come off nice. That one's nice. That one's nice. That one's nice. And then you touch like the VVTI position, and you go to take the wires out, and it just goes and falls apart in a crumbly heap.
Oh.
And the water temp just falls apart in a crumbly heap, and the VVTI just falls apart. And then you do the coils, and they're all mint. They're all good. But you never know which one's going to fall apart. Oh, and the transmission speed sensor. One of them, perfect. The other one, falls apart. So, and I see this a lot on the 3UZs, and I know why a lot of people are having trouble with their 3UZs. Because, especially the cam position sensors, they fall apart and get bad connections, and then people don't fix them. And that's happening on factory cars. So we're seeing it, of course, we do a swap. That's why I do a refab on these looms, because there's always one or two in there that just shatter and fall apart. And that affects our reliability. I'm actually going on this one, because it's so mangled, I'm going to chop out the factory body plugs, which I don't normally do on a car this age.
Yeah.
And trying to resurrect this in here back to standard is It's just going to be a pain in my backside. Literally, because I'm going to be sitting on this lip for hours. I'm just trying to decipher what's going on in this box. We've got a cut wire. So what's happened is this wire here has been connected up to a fan when it's normally the start wire. There's the start relay there. This wire's been cut, and if we look inside, I've removed a bit of tape, and so these plugs haven't been used. Those are the factory ones. These two, these two here are the factory ECU, which need to be reinstated, and it had these extra wires tapped in, and all these wires joined to the 3UZ plug there, and the other 3UZ plugs like on a little sub loom. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these and work out what was actually in there, what's in there, and then cut them off. I've actually got that plug there, but I don't have those two. So I was going to cut them off, put another plug on it, like a universal plug. That solves that problem. And then sort this stuff out somehow. I don't have an exact plan on this job because it's a mess and it's a repair. And it's one wire at a time. One area, one section. We will get there. I'll get it sorted. This is what happens when you spend 3 hours at night chasing wiring information. You learn shit. 4x4 Hilux, 4x4 Hilux. Body plugs inside are the same except for the four-wheel drive stuff, of course, right? Good. The engine bay plugs, I found the change between pin 8 and 12. Yeah, change between 8 and 12. So it's listed on my diagrams because that's to do with engine wiring. So I'm down to 2 wires that I don't know where they are and what they are in that front fuse box, and it's the pin 5 and 6. So I think they went out to something on the engine, like an idle up something or a feedback for something. I'll put it together, I'll run extra wires through the loom, and then if I need them, I need them. And then of course I wire it in my head, so I was going to put the start relay back to standard, but seeing it's already stuffed up, why don't I change it to suit the GS430, which is an earth signal instead of a power signal. That makes sense?
That's what they've done anyway.
No, but he's turned the start relay into a fan relay off the fan output out of the ECU, which wouldn't work because it's a PWM.
Right.
And then this is the problem that you get when you're fixing something from someone else. And I gave you that stuff here to fix, eh? What'd you do with it? That ugliness.
Ugliness? Oh.
What'd you do with the ugliness? Did I cover it in paperwork?
I left it here. Unless you picked it up and moved it.
Oh, I probably moved it.
You might have moved it because it was here last night. Because look, this is the tester.
Oh, here it is. Hanging off the bench. This bit.
What's this?
So this is a
Oh,
fuel pump control,
module.
right? And it didn't make sense to me. It's in a GS430 wiring loom.
Does it not have a fuel pump control module?
Sorry, I should actually specify, shouldn't I? It didn't make sense it's in a 190 series GS430 wiring loom because they run relays. This is a 190 series GS430, not a 160 series GS430, which run a fuel pump control. Good morning, how are you?
It's a wonderful one, mate. Wonderful. Does it need that?
I don't think so. Successful night.
That's all I like to hear. Yes, that is on. Right?
JZS 160. And here in Toyo DIY, JZS 160, UZS 161, UZS 16, whatever. UZS 160, 161. It would have been really easy if I had thought about that earlier and just Toyo DIY'd that part number.
Fine, yeah. It's okay. You are dealing with a mess.
I am dealing with a mess. My brain's a bit scrambled actually.
So, thinking about that after the fact is...
Yep.
Try to use JZ parts to make the easier bit.
Yeah.
But it's the wrong parts.
It's the wrong parts, man. Do we remember where we started? I hardly remember where I started because I've spent days and days and days fixing this. Mostly fixing this. I've got this bit to do, which is the airflow meter wiring. The main trunk is done. This side's all been redone. I've got to sort some, I haven't put this cover on yet. That'll go on once it's in the vehicle, and I've got the body plugs. I've mapped out all the plugs. Normally what I do is I take the loom out of the vehicle and I map it out. And I just trace all the wires. It's real simple, real easy. Most of them I can do in 45 minutes to an hour. Tricky ones is like a couple of hours. But this one I didn't have that at all. And by doing that too, even when I've got one that I've got the pinout for, I will still go through and check it all, because sometimes being Toyota, between different years, they'll change like 3 or 4 pins around. And that's enough to not make it run at the other end and cause hassle. So it's easier to do the planning stage and checking than fixing the stuff up. Okay. I'm going to put a different plug on this one. And I've got a 26 pin plug and there's like 29 wires there. I've run the factory ECU again. So those are all that I need for the engine side of the harness. I think there's 7 earths and 3 other wires in there. And then these ones will be actually resurrected. I'm going to put them back to standard mostly. And I'm going to tap over the few that I need for this job, for that ECU. Okay, so things like the accelerator pedal won't be in this. They'll be in here. Main power supplies will feed this and that, and the 3UZ ECU. Things like the main relay will be taken away from there and put here. Engine check light will be taken away from here and put here. This will still communicate. This will no longer communicate. No, sorry, give me that wrong. This will communicate with the car, and this will communicate with its own plug. I'd show them the fuse box that I've modified, but Shay's doing a quad bike in here and it's wet out and cold outside, so we won't do that until you finish your quad bike, eh?
Let's do that.
Here's just one example of what I've been dealing with in this loom. Here's a join. You'll see that all these joins are pretty much at the same spot. So the ideal way is to just stagger them. They've been taped up, which is probably okay, but the taping isn't neat. The soldering inside is not ideally soldered. Now let's go look at some good stuff. Jace did some designing, some altering, and as you can see, we now have the correct size body, airflow meter fitted, and a factory tube coming down to the throttle body. We'll need to space this up, I think, a little bit. We'll see once we get into it. We might be able to shape it down, That's actually looking like it should. And fuel filter. Jace was clever over here. Now if you notice in the first video, there was no fuel pressure rig. So we fitted this fuel filter. It clips on the same self-clipping unit. Underneath, it clips on, same clipping unit. And then Jason added that tube there, that hose, for the return back to the tank. This has got a 4-bar regulator, so it should be pretty close to run that 3UZ. Look at this, we have a wiring loom fitted. The main loom is all done, and in place and connected, all the factory brackets back on it. It goes down to the gearbox, or the transmission like it should. Heater hoses are now fitted, hopefully for the last time. The gearbox has come back and has been fitted up. We've done some fan wiring. Shay got in and tucked some fan wiring in. Goes down, so this fan should work correctly now. And of course we've got the fan switch to control it, which is in there. These all just plug in. Factory plugs plug into this fuse box nicely. Looking really good. And now moving on the inside, which I really don't want to do because it's a real mess in there, but I don't really have a choice. And if you remember what came out, well, this is what's going back in.